Let's talk about the most powerful computer on the planet. You actually have one right inside your skull. Yep, the human brain. It handles incredibly complex stuff with amazing speed, and it does it all using about as much power as a dim light bulb. So, how does it work? And, more importantly for us, can we copy its secrets to build a way smarter artificial intelligence?
See, at the very heart of your brain's power is the biological neuron. And these are not your simple on-off switches you'd find in a computer chip. No way. These cells are wildly complex little processors. They don't just calculate, they integrate information over time, chatting with thousands of other neurons using these tiny little electrical pulses. It's a system so elegant, so efficient, that all of our modern technology is still just trying to catch up.
And that really brings us to the biggest question of all, doesn't it? Can we actually build an artificial brain that doesn't just calculate, but thinks the way ours does? Well, the answer might be in a totally revolutionary approach to AI. But before we can appreciate the revolution, we've got to understand what's already out there. So let's take a quick look at the powerful, but very hungry technology that runs most of the AI in our world today. This is the world of artificial neural networks, or ANNs for short. You can think of these as the second generation of AI. They are the workhorses behind, well, pretty much everything, from your phone's photo app to complex language translation. And they've done some incredible things. But, and this is a big but, they're only loosely inspired by the brain. The way they process information is fundamentally different. So how do they work? Well, ANNs use what are called continuous values. The easiest way to picture it is to think of a dimmer switch for a light. Every connection is always on, it's just at a different level of brightness. The brighter the light, the stronger the signal. Now, it works, for sure, but it's super energy intensive, and it's absolutely not how your brain does it.
And this is where things get really interesting. We're moving towards a new evolution in AI, a total paradigm shift that promises to be more efficient, more powerful, and a whole lot closer to the real thing. So welcome to the third generation.
These are spiking neural networks, or SNNs. So what makes them so different? They add one crucial ingredient that the second generation was completely missing, the one ingredient that makes our own brains tick, the concept of time. Instead of everything being on all the time, neurons in an SNN only send out a signal, a spike, at a very precise moment. So if an ANN is our dimmer switch, an SNN is much more like Morse code. The information isn't about how bright the signal is. It's all about the precise timing and the pattern of these individual pulses. It's a much richer and, as it turns out, a far more efficient way to encode information.
Okay, so how does a single spiking neuron decide when to send one of those pulses? Well, the most common model is called leaky integrate and fire, and it's actually pretty intuitive. Imagine each neuron is a tiny bucket. Incoming spikes from other neurons are like little drops of water filling it up. That's the integrate part. But the bucket also has a tiny hole in it, so water is always slowly leaking out. Now, if enough drops come in fast enough to fill that bucket all the way to the top, that's the threshold, it tips over and fires, sending its own splash of water out to other buckets. Then it's empty and ready to start again. That simple process is the key to its dynamic, time-based thinking.
All right, so we have two really different approaches here, the established powerhouse versus the new brain-inspired challenger. So how do they really stack up against each other? Let's break it down.
When you put them side by side, the trade-offs become really clear. You've got ANNs with their rate-based info, which makes them really energy-hungry, but their training methods are totally figured out. Then you have SNNs, using that super-efficient Morse code-style communication, just like the brain. The upside is huge potential for energy savings. The downside? That last line, the challenge of training.
And that training hurdle has been the biggest roadblock for SNNs. See, the math that makes ANNs so trainable, it needs those smooth, continuous values. It needs the dimmer switch so it can make tiny adjustments up or down. But a spike is an all-or-nothing event. It's either a 1 or a 0. It happens, or it doesn't. You can't make a tiny adjustment to that, and that basically breaks the standard math for training AI.
But, and this is a huge but, this is where the story gets really exciting. Researchers are coming up with all sorts of clever new ways to get around this problem, and it's working. The performance gap is closing fast. In fact, on some specific tasks, SNNs have already matched the performance of their traditional cousins.
So this progress isn't just happening in software. To really tap into the insane efficiency of SNNs, we can't just run them on our normal computers. No, we need a whole new kind of hardware.
We need computer chips that are designed, from the ground up, to think in spikes.
And this new hardware has a name: neuromorphic computing. And this is not science fiction, okay? This is happening right now. You've got huge players like Intel with its Loihi chip, IBM with TrueNorth, plus massive university projects all over the world, all building chips that are designed to work like a biological brain.
So what can this new hardware actually do? Well, check this out. Here you have an SNN controlling a virtual insect, helping it navigate and find a target. It's taking in sensory data over time, it's making decisions, it's adapting just like a real living thing would. This is exactly the kind of complex real-world job where SNNs are built to shine.
And it all comes back to that incredible efficiency. Get this, some recent studies have shown high-performance SNNs running with just 0.3 spikes per neuron. I mean, think about that for a second. That means most of the network is silent most of the time. It only wakes up and uses energy when it has something important to say. That sparse, event-driven style, that's the brain's secret to using so little power.
So what's the big takeaway here? What does this all mean for the future? I think I'll just leave you with this one powerful quote from the research. Temporal coding implies that a single spiking neuron can replace hundreds of hidden units on a conventional neural net. Let that sink in. Not just a little more efficient, but potentially hundreds of times more powerful and compact. We're not just building a better calculator here. We are starting to learn the brain's secret code. And the question is no longer if we can build an artificial brain, but what are we going to do with it when we finally succeed?